Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 41. Yes, we've just gone past our 40th birthday, and last week we obviously had the fantastic Jim Hatcher on with us. And today we continue our 2021 of, I'm blown away by the caliber of guests that we've managed to get to come on the show, and I know that Pete and Paul are as well. We continue that, but I will tell you who we have on in just a minute. But first of all, would you like to say the usual suspects? Would you like to say hello, Mr. Peter Lant?
I would. I'm excited about this one. It's a Friday night when we're recording this, by the way. That's how excited we are about it. We're doing it on a Friday night.
It is fantastic. And Mr. Paul Bassett, would you like to say hello?
Hello, this is episode 41, so it's me. It's a very fine vintage.
And the guest that we have today, I will quickly say hello to him, then I will give a little intro before we hand over fully. But we have all the way from San Jose in California in the United States, Mark Reifkind. Hello, Mark.
Hey guys, hey James, honored to be here. Thanks for staying up late on Friday night for me.
Staying up late.
7 p.m. is late when you've got two young kids.
Hey, at my age, it's bedtime close to me.
Yeah, okay. So guys, for those of you who have been around the strength world for a while, those of you who have had anything to do with kettlebells, with Strong First, and have just read books or even been listening to this podcast, you will have heard of the name Mark Reifkind or Riff before. I was just saying to him, I think he's been referenced or quoted on at least half a dozen of the podcasts that we've done. Many of the books that I read, even books written by people like Dan John, by Pavel, there's usually a picture of Riff in there somewhere and a quote and a reference to something he's said over the years. I first met Riff, I think it was probably it might have been 2015, where we were doing a kettlebell certification. And actually, Pete and Paul, we were all on it together. That's possibly the first time we met as well. So there's a bit of history. And we've hosted Mark and Tracy Reifkind. You will have listened to the episode with Tracy as well. We've hosted them at Unique Results at least 2 or 3 times for various certifications and workshops. And this guy is just someone that we've been wanting to have on for a long time. And I don't want to give too much away, but we will learn all about him and the wisdom and the knowledge that he can impart to us. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mark Reifkind. And Riff, if you could just maybe tell us, for the people listening who maybe don't know of your history and what you've done, just a little bit of a background into your athletic kind of career and background and where you are now. That's a massive question, I know, because you've done so much. But
how long have we got?
If you could do that in about 5 minutes.
Well, I'll do my best. And first off, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. This is great. I love you guys. Background. This is actually my 50th year of training and competing and coaching. So I'm 64. I started when I was 14 in gymnastics. So I did about 8 years of competitive gymnastics, 4 years in high school, and then I was at the University of Iowa. I was captain at the University of Iowa for 4 years. Did that for 4 years till I blew out my shoulder, kind of ended my gymnastics career. From there, I went into, because my shoulder was wrecked, I went into distance running and ultra distance running, and did a foray into ultra marathons and triathlon training for a while. So that was about 2.5 years. And then I ended up back into, gymnastics and bodybuilding went together kind of hand in glove. So I got into the bodybuilding world, and I did about 8 years of competitive bodybuilding. I ended up coaching professional bodybuilder. I was training partners with Scott Wilson, rest in peace. Also Sue Ann McKean, who was a top 3 Ms. Olympia competitor. I coached her. and I was in that whole world of competitive bodybuilding. I took third in Mr. San Jose, qualified for national competition. I did 8 years of competitive bodybuilding. Then Scott and I ended up buying a world gym, a commercial gym in 1989. And strangely enough, World Gym we bought it was called the Ironworks, and it was a very well-known Olympic lifting and powerlifting gym. And, you know, I tell the story, I got bodybuilding, you know, basically it's a male beauty contest, and you can tell I'm not that pretty. So it's like, I got tired of it being not competitive. I love bodybuilding training, and I hated the competition. So I ended up getting into powerlifting. So I spent about 13 years as a competitive powerlifter. I came this close to my elite rating, drug-free at 181. I got 1485, and I needed 1500 for elite. Coached another female, a competitive bodybuilder. She had been top 3 in the IPF World Championships 3 or 4 times. So I coached her. Her name was Kathleen Keeley. So I did about 13 years of that, and then ended up with a pretty bad back injury. Go figure, you know, competitive powerlifting, prior injuries, and I was old at the start. And I ended up finding out about Pavel and kettlebells. I was also a writer. I've been writing since my first article was in 1979 for Iron Man magazine, the original Iron Man magazine. And so I've been writing bodybuilding, muscle building stuff, and I ended up writing an article on stone throwing for Milo magazine, which is a, you know, really unique kind of niche strength magazine. And Pavel's first article on kettlebells, vodka, pickle juice, and kettlebells was in that article. And I saw that, I was like, oh man, that looks interesting. So I got a kettlebell, and then it was off to the races. I just literally fell in love with the kettlebell. I was already jacked up. I couldn't really power lift anymore. And the kettlebell pretty much saved my life. I could do something. You know, I had a back injury, I had a bad knee, I had a bad shoulder, but I could swing a bell. And so from there, I started training, and I knew, you know, I got on the forum, the old Dragon Door forum, you know, and Mike Castrogiovanni, I knew him from the old World Gym days when he was like a kid, like 14 years old. I helped intro him into weight training. He knew Pavel and introduced me to Pavel, and Pavel said, you know, come on the forum, like, you know, I know your background, I respect what you're doing, please come into the community. And then next thing I know, I was certified, which was a whole miracle in itself.
So how old were you, Mark, when you first sort of picked up a kettlebell, when you first discovered the kettlebell and bought one and started?
So you guys do the math. It was 1990. I wrote the article in 98. I picked up the kettlebell as soon as they were available in 2001. So I was like 44, something like that.
The 20 years ago. Yeah. Fantastic.
And I got certified in 05, and then I was senior in 06. And then I was the third master along with Kenneth J in RKC in 2008. So then it's been, you know, that whole time through that. So it's been a real good run, and it's just getting better.
And I know that you said, because when we were trying to obviously arrange this kind of this podcast, you still train now. So you're 64, I think you said 63, right. 64, and you're still training clients. I think you said every morning from sort of 6 a.m. till midday. You're kind of training clients yourself, aren't you? Still?
Oh yeah, I've had half of my clients I've had them as clients for 20 plus years. Wow. So I started them 20 years ago, and then they're still with me. So the other third I've had for, you know, close to 15 years. So my schedule's booked, thank God. You know, that's good. And I haven't made enough money to retire yet, so I'm going to work. I'll be working for a while. As you know, when you're a trainer, there's no safety net. There's no retirement plan except your own. So yeah, I still work. I'm up at 3:45 every morning, and start my first client at 6. Work till, you know, noon or 1, and then I train.
Yeah. So hang on. What are you doing between 3:45 and 6? Because you're clearly not having a shave. So
for those of you,
I stretch. You know,
For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, Mark has got an absolutely fabulous beard, and if you've watched the Christmas Chronicles with Kurt Russell as Father Christmas, he's got a huge, he's got a beard that I would love to have one day. So that was
Bearded
And it's a
envy from
strange thing
James.
because I was like addicted to straight razor shaving for a dozen years. Like I have a whole collection of straight razors, and I shaved every day with straight razors. And then one day, 3 years ago, I stopped shaving for our anniversary, and my wife like goes, I like that. So it's like Tracy was the one, like, don't shave. I thought, well, she just wants me to cover up my face more, right? You know, but she loved it. And then all of a sudden I realized like I can grow this thing, and it's so now I'm like, I have no idea when it's going to stop, but it's fairly large. It doesn't bug me. I thought it would bug me, but I actually doesn't bug me at all.
No, sorry. So I interrupted your morning routine, which was a very serious question from Pete.
Yeah.
So you wake up,
get up at 3, 4.
Yeah.
I'm a slow starter. I like to start things slow. I get up. Tracy and I have coffee together. Because nothing happens, especially at 3:45 without coffee. So I get up I get there. And now since the pandemic, I don't have to drive. I used to have to drive 30 minutes to work, and now it's at home. But I still get up at the same time, have coffee. Then I practice guitar for about a half hour. And it's just really nice, meditative. I played guitar, when I was in high school, and I just never really learned how to do it well. So I practice guitar. And
It's
then
not hard rock or something at 3, 4 in the morning for your neighbors.
Well, I play electric guitar, but I never plug it in. So I'm just trying to learn. I'm trying to learn lead guitar. So I practice my scales, and it's just very meditative, and it just starts the day off slow. And then I do my body maintenance. Like that's one of the courses we had at Unique Results. That saved my life. So every morning I get up, I go through my body maintenance routine, and that takes about 20 minutes. And so, shower, I don't shave, but that, it gets me ready. And then I'd rather get up early and do everything super slow and calm, because I found out like some people like get up and fall, like I'd be stressed out. Like I like to have a slow start and very calm, and then roll into it, and then I'm good for the day. If
90% of our clients kind of rush though, don't they? Most of the people I deal with are panicked, from the morning through to whatever time they start work. So it takes quite a bit of discipline to build that regime. I take it you're also going to bed on time as well.
Yeah, 8:30, 9 p.m., which is about the latest. I get in. I try to go at 8:30. A lot of times it's 9. I also take a nap, in the afternoon. Just the routine. That's like I should write an article called "The Power of Routine," because for me, I really believe in routine. It makes my life so much easier. I don't have to think about. I know what I'm going to do. I know it's 8:30. I'm going to go to bed. The alarm sets 3:45. I wake up. I don't ask myself that question. It's the same with the training, right? I never ask the one question you never ask, like, do I feel like working out? It's like, no. Well, people think that it's going to be better. Like I've trained all these years. People think it gets easier. It gets harder. It's going to be hard. The results are going to be slow. It's going to be whatever, difficult. So I never, ever ask myself that question.
That's great, actually, because we might as well, like, we've got lots of things to talk about, but we might as well talk about that now, because I think James mentioned this. He did a little write-up before we did this saying you were coming on. And it's how do you keep that passion for training for 50 years? How do you do that?
I'm a little weird.
We all are, though, aren't we?
Yeah, I know. It's I have the right character flaws. To me, there's a lot of stuff that goes into my psychology of that. I never got to go to the Olympics. That was my dream. That was kind of unfulfilled. So I kind of, when I got injured in college, it was always kind of chasing that, wanting to be elite. And even though I've achieved it on a lot of levels, it's like, I don't want to lose that. I love that. What's that Hungarian psychologist? I can't pronounce his last name. That did the book on the flow state.
Oh,
Mikhail. I can't pronounce.
You're good, Paul, at remembering names.
Well, I'm on the spot now.
Anyhow, he's a Hungarian psychologist. Wrote a book about flow and that flow state. And I recognize that when I was a gymnast, That flow state was like calm, peaceful. That was the best part of my day. And being in that flow state is literally the best part of my day. So I get out of my head, I'm focused, I'm in my body, I feel strong. And a lot of it has to do with, in my belief, you're either getting stronger or you're getting weaker. There's no maintenance is, if you're still training, excuse me, maintenance is okay. But if you're not trying to get better, you're getting weaker. And I hate how that feels. You know, I mean, I think I said something like strong fixes almost everything. And when I feel strong and I feel comfortable in my own body, I'm not going backwards. So I like that feeling. So it's very satisfying to achieve that. Now, while I'm in the gym, of course, it's hard. It's, you know, I don't want to get up. I'm stiff, I'm sore, whatever. But I know what happens if you don't do that. You know, and I had enough personal experience in my life with weak people that I never want to be that guy. I never want to be that guy that's too lazy to do what I need to do, right? I always told my kids, to me, the most important thing in life was being able to do that what you needed to do, but didn't want to. Because then you can accomplish anything. I mean, that could be studying for your test, right? I don't want to study for my test. Well, okay, I need to study for my test or I'm going to fail. How do you make yourself do that? And I think that's where that routine gets in. You get in the habit, right? You get in the habit of doing what you're supposed to do and not asking yourself that, do I feel like it? Like, who cares what you feel like? You know? I mean, really, I mean, I think that's the hardest thing. I mean, clients, especially people like it, well, it's hard. It's like, yeah, you know Jocko, right?
Yeah.
Jocko, right?
Yeah.
So what's Jocko's answer to that? Good. It's hard. Gives you a better chance to get stronger. I think a lot of it, Peter, is like who I want to be.
Yeah.
Who do I want to be personally, right? In my own mind, in my own heart, you know, which kind of guy do I want to be? You know, and I grew up, I had a lot of negative influences of people in my life, you know, that gave up. And I saw that example. I saw what that looked like. It's like, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be, you know, my first role model was Superman. Like I wanted to be Superman, right? You know, do the right thing, be strong, take care of others. I mean, that was that hero, right? So that kind of influenced me till this day, right? So that's a lot of it. And then setting small goals. I think people, like to me, that's the difference between training and exercising. And exercising is fine, but exercising doesn't have an end result other than the own workout, right? So training is goals plus deadlines. And in my mind, I don't care whether I ever actually meet the goal, but I'm working towards it. So I have the big goal, and then I have the daily goal, and I have the weekly goal in my mind. And all that counts is that I'm trying. And occasionally I get the goals and I fail as much, and I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to look bad. You know, it's like I try something, it didn't work. It's like, okay, move on. So I, you know, in gymnastics, man, I mean, you miss stuff a million times before you do it right once. If you're not okay with messing up, you're not going to go anywhere. So I think that's a lot. It's like who I want to be. Like now I want to be that old guy that's kicking everybody else's ass, right? Best I can.
Yeah.
As best I can. So it's like, you know, I used to say, it's like, if I can't outlift you, I'll outlast you. Because I'm a little competitive, man. Just a little competitive. And remember, I had my knee replaced 8 years ago. When you guys saw me, did I have my knee replaced then? Or was I still gimping around?
You
No,
did.
this
Was something I was going to ask you about as well, because you were talking about like getting back into pistol squats, and I think you were talking about the doctor had said you'll get this range of motion back, and you were like, yeah, but I know what I'm doing. So you were behind the sofa and just like, you know, putting your hands on the sofa, you said, and just going, and now you can get back to full squatting and all of that. So
Right. That was a huge thing for me. I mean, a lot of it was like that whole time. Well, my knee went south. I mean, when I hurt my knee when I was 17. And so everything I did was with a, really destroyed knee. And by the time I was like 1993, I started limping. I didn't even know why. I had no idea. And it just got worse and worse and worse, and got to the point where like I'd go to a cert and I'd be dragging that leg around. And it was like, oh, geez, it was terrible. And I was, in my mind, I was still strong and competitive essentially. But then, I was that old guy that, everybody's like, oh, he's the old guy. What he used to do in high school. I hated that. That just chewed me up. I'm limping around and I'm dragging my leg and I'm trying hard not to look like I'm doing it, but everyone knew, right? And it's hard when, you still feel vital, but everybody's like, you want to hear your stories of what you did 20 years, like nobody cares, So once I got my knee replaced and I could do this stuff, it's like, oh, literally got a new lease on life. I ruck 7 miles every Sunday with 50 pounds, and I ruck, I'm doing all the stuff that I wanted to do during that time with, when I was teaching certs and out and about all the time, that I couldn't do. I couldn't demonstrate because I was hurt.
How do you manage that? How do you manage that pain and manage the enthusiasm at the same time? Because we had Perry Nicholson on a couple of weeks back, and he talks about the kind of effects of chronic pain and the signals that your body is giving you, and how it can play with your mind. I mean, how do you stay positive? I mean,
well, do you mean now or then? Because it's completely different now. Like I'm completely out of pain now.
So back then, when you had that vitality in your mind and you knew your body, you're still still young, probably in your 40s.
Right.
If it started in 93, maybe 30s.
Yeah, I was in 40s. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that mentally? Because a lot of people just derailed as soon as they get any injury.
Absolutely. No. And that goes back to my family history and all that. My dad got sick. The reality is my dad got very sick when I was 13 years old, and he basically got in bed and gave up. And that made a huge impact on me. It's like, I'm not going to be that guy. It's like, I just made up my mind. I'm not going to do that. So, and then I blew out my knee and when I was 17, then I blew out my shoulder when I was 21, and it was nothing but pain afterwards. It's like, at a certain point, you have to make a choice. I'm either going to get in bed and quit, or I'm going to just suck it up and go. And I sucked it up. And a lot of what I learned, everything I learned about the body came about because no one could help me. The doctors, the PTs, no one had anything that gave. So I was on my own. I was kind of like, I had to find, excuse me, what worked, regardless of whether it came out of a scientific journal or out of a doctor's mouth. It's like, what mattered to me is, does it make me feel better? Like I was one of the first people ever to foam roll, right? And I did the RKC, the Restoring Lost Physical Function DVD, and I gave, the level 2 RKC speech on restoring lost physical function was about my attempts to unlock my body. And, people say, oh, foam rolling is this and that's like, well, it works for me. And all I care about, really, when you come down, when you're training people, right, and you're training clients, you don't have to figure out the theory of everything. I got stuck in that for a long time. It's like, I want to figure out the underlying principles that's going to inform something for everyone. No, like, does it work for me? Good. Does it work for my client? Good. Do I understand it? What's Pavel say, right? Understanding is a delaying tactic. Do you want to swim or understand hydrodynamics? It's like, I want to swim. Do I understand how? No. Maybe I'll figure it out later. Maybe I won't. Maybe you can say that this is doing that and you call it that name. It's like, well, it's not releasing fascia. Like, do I care? No. I feel better. I can function better. I'm gone. So that's been my whole life. I've had butted heads against the medical establishments, the scientific establishment, because they'll say X and I know it's Y. It's like, okay, I'm going with Y, because we were talking earlier about Dr. Squat, Fred Hatfield, right? And that quote I said, like, do you want to learn how to go fast? Go to the racetrack. Those guys, athletes, know, like athletes, coaches they're bound by what works.
Yeah.
No, if it doesn't work, you can have the greatest peer-reviewed, scientific, double-blind, whatever, and it doesn't work. No athlete cares. No coach, no coach cares. Coach Summers, the gymnastics coach.
Yeah. Gymnastic bodies.
Coach Summers, he had a great quote. He was being interviewed, and he was basically saying, "I've never seen a gold medal with on the back it says produced by peer-reviewed, double-blind research." It doesn't happen. Because if you're waiting for the research to validate what you're doing, you're literally 5 years behind the curve. Coaches are the guys out there, athletic coaches, because they have to produce. And if they're not producing, they're no good. So if they're waiting for validation from a committee that says, yes, that's the way you should do it, they're already lost. So that's been my approach the whole time, and still this approach today. It's like, and that's how, so dealing with the pain, I didn't see that I had a choice. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to crawl into my bed and just what? I mean, I can't do that. Some people can, I couldn't do that. So I fought, and it became a fight. And, I had a reputation of being a little bit cranky, And I think that's what people don't understand about people that live with chronic pain. One of the biggest things that happened to me after my knee replacement, my energy increased like 1,000,000%. I mean, literally 1,000,000%. I knew how much it sapped me. I thought I knew how much it was sapping me, trying to keep dealing with the pain, but I didn't really get it. But you talk to people who are in chronic pain, because, I mean, how many times are you going to tell somebody, oh, my knee hurts, oh, my back hurts? Like, people don't care. No. So it's just, at some point, you just shut up and you do your best.
Well, it's part of your brain that gets kind of consumed by pain. And it's not until you've kind of got out of pain that you suddenly realize that you have all this mental space that before was being used to just process an underlying kind of constant pain. And then all of a sudden it disappears and you're like, oh, wow. Okay.
I have so much energy.
Yeah.
I have so much. I mean, I would get home from work and it would be 2.5 hours every day of body maintenance just to be able to go back to work. That was a constant, and it wasn't like it was good. It just wasn't as bad. So once I got my knee done, and then, it was the same thing with my knee replacement. I had my knee done, and Peter, like you're saying, the doctor said, don't squat. It's like, okay, how am I going to sit on the toilet? That's a squat. Oh, okay. So I did my own rehab for my knee.
So, I mean, a lot of our clients, some of them may be in chronic pain before they even say talk to a trainer or even start engaging in some kind of physical activity. I mean, how do you advise people to overcome those hurdles that for the moment may feel unsurmountable? Because maybe they've lived with chronic pain for a long time, or maybe they've been inactive for a really long time. So it seems like this mountain. You were not lucky. You invested a lot of your life in knowledge, so that when you were faced with these issues, and they were sport-specific issues by the sound of it, that the impacts.
Yeah, there were accidents.
Accidents, right?
They weren't training. I mean, I didn't do overtraining and hurt my knee. I fell and I crashed and I blew my knee out. It was like getting hit by a car, right?
Yeah. So kind of something you can't really predict.
But it doesn't really matter why you're in pain. You're in pain for whatever reason, right? But for your clients, how do you do it? See, my population, I've been training the same general population from the beginning. I always lent myself towards general pop, regular people who were injured, right? Because everybody, trainers come out, they want to train pro athletes. They're cheap as hell. They don't have the money. They don't want to pay. And they're a pain in the butt for the most part. And you're really like, how much satisfaction is there is putting 5 pounds on a guy whose bench press is already 500 pounds? It's like helping regular people, to me, was always so much more satisfying. It's like getting somebody who's completely unfit to a base level of fitness. That was one, super challenging, and two, much more satisfying to me I was never elitist, even though I wanted to be an elite athlete. I was never elitist about my training because the need was so good and so great. And from a business perspective, these are the people that are going to appreciate your expertise and your time and your energy. So to answer your question better, my starting point's always body maintenance. It's like, why are you in pain? Most people, they have physical restrictions. It's mostly muscular restrictions. It's postural imbalances. It's, muscle imbalances, and their basic motor patterns are messed up. They can't squat. They can't walk. I mean, one of the things that was great about this, when I didn't walk right. I couldn't go downstairs for 20 years. I mean, 20 years. I had to go downstairs sideways or backwards. Stairs freaked me out because I couldn't do it, right? So I had to literally relearn how to walk again and go downstairs and all that stuff. So I learned a lot about gait. And now when I look at people, like, people can't walk. I mean, it's horrible.
And then you watch them run, and it's even worse.
Oh, it's beyond. Well, literally, if you can't walk, you're not going to be able to run well.
Now, I've got a quick example. There's a lady who started with me this week. And she's been running loads, and she's got a sore knee, and she's been to see physio and all that. And I basically just got to stand on one leg. She can stand on one leg, okay, and the other leg,
not the other one.
And I'm like,
there, right there.
Oh,
that's the problem.
She's had a massive breakthrough in 3 sessions just by me teaching her to stand on one leg and saying, right, go home and do lots of that. And she's
I literally, the session before, that's what I was doing. Walking in place, standing on one leg. And, it's like, I think people say they decide to get fit, and they get a trainer, and they have all this information from the magazines and the online and stuff like that of what they think they're supposed to do. It's like, I think the first part for people that are that out of shape or in pain is to hear from the trainer and to understand and accept themselves. Like, you didn't get here in 5 minutes. You're not getting out in 5 minutes. So let's just get that out of the question. This is a journey. This is a lifestyle, right? I have a guy, funny story, a guy I trained in 93 at World Gym when I had it, that I trained in powerlifting, that he called me up, this is like 30 years, 40 years later. And he had the same doctor, and he had gained 50, 60 pounds, horrible, out of shape, shoulder, knee, back, blah, blah. His doctor said, that guy that trained you back then, try to find him. And he did. And I had a slot open. But again, the same thing. I said, you have to understand. So he showed up at my place. He goes he says, Mark, he says, you haven't aged. What did you do? I said, I never stopped training. And that's it. He stopped training.
Well, that's what Jim said yesterday when we interviewed him.
Guess who's here?
Hey! Hello!
They're just talking about, I got all this stuff.
Hey, Tracy.
I won't take up any of his time.
Good to see you,
I just had
Tracy.
to, what do you call that?
Photo bomb.
Video bomb.
Yeah.
Zoom bomb.
That's the podcast.
I was walking around. Never mind.
Look at how a new thing, podcast crashing. That's not even
Podcast crashing, exactly. But I just told him, I was like, I never stopped training.
Well, we had Jim on yesterday, and he mentioned one of his big regrets. I mean, he's 79 now, and his big regret was when he was 40, he stopped training for 15 years.
Yeah. That makes it, the good news is that if you have that in your background somewhere, it's there. There's a hard wire there that people, like when someone tells me they in that situation, they haven't trained for whatever, 15, 20 years, but they tell me, oh, well, I did athletics or I trained at some point. I'm like, okay, we're good. Because that's in there somewhere. The hard part is the people that have been sedentary their entire lives, have no psychological approach or interest or background or neurological setup for it. That's harder. It still do, but I do the same things. Yeah, Peter?
That's me, by the way. I didn't start training until I was like 34, properly. Yeah. So it was horrible. But I was like, I'm weak and I need to sort this out because I've been basically lethargic during school. I was never on any sports teams, and then I had a desk job. So it just completely screwed me up.
It's so common too. And now more than ever, But for the client that comes in, it's like them understanding like, you're getting started on a lifestyle. I mean, it sounds so trite, everybody says it's a lifestyle, but it really is. If you're thinking it's going to be a 12-week course or a 6-week course or a 6-month course, you're going to be disappointed because it's going to be slow. It's going to be slow goings when, okay, what's your training today? Okay, stand on one leg, walk in place. Okay, let's get, your hamstrings. You can't even do a proper hinge because your hamstrings are so tight. You have to start where, you start and make little forays into getting better. And I think, one of the reasons, it's like, I'm always celebrating any success. It's like one of the things I notice all the time when I'm, on forums or Facebook or whatever, it's like people are so critical all the time. And, that's fine as long as you lead with some enthusiasm. I learned that when I was a gymnastics coach and I was teaching 3 to 4 years old. If you think you're a coach, you start try to teach a 3 to 4 year old any physical skill. And you realize right away, if you start with no, they don't hear a thing you say after no. Well, that's wrong, do it this way. After they hear that's wrong, they don't hear a thing. But you say, good job. You celebrate their effort. Sure, their technique's okay. You did this. Can you try that? Great. You did a good job. You tried, because they're trying. They're not messing up because they want to. They're messing up because they don't know what the hell they're doing. But if you celebrate their attempt, and I see so little of that, I see like, oh, this is out, this is out, this is not. It's like, okay, the guy tried. At least give him some props for that, and then make the correction. They're going to be open to it. So
do you find, I think I was just going to ask Mark, obviously through one of the questions, I think it was Pete asked early on, it may have been Paul, was how you've maintained your enthusiasm over the last 50 years for training. And I know you talked about the kind of your character and the kind of person that you want to be. That's the kind of person you want to be. But do you find that you've almost had obviously like a gymnastics career, a bodybuilding career, a powerlifting career, an endurance kind of career as well, and now kind of you're in the kind of the kettlebell stage of that career.
Right.
Have you found that maybe, every decade almost having a different world, I suppose, to get into and to learn and to learn new skills and things? Do you think that's helped by having these different modalities of training and these different focuses throughout your life?
Well, I mean, none of it was like, I would have been very happy to never not be a gymnast. I could have stayed a gymnast the whole time had I been able to. Bodybuilding was the endurance thing, to be honest, I was just running away from life. Okay. I mean, I was literally running away from life. Like after I lost my Olympic dream, I started running because I was trying to escape everything. I lost my mind because I lost my identity. So I was just like, I go out and run twice a day. I was running 120 miles a week because it was the only place I didn't feel insane. So, and then bodybuilding, then it was like, to be honest, I was 20 something, right? I'm 5'5" and 125 pounds and broke. It's hard to get a date. At least bodybuilding, you get a little bit jacked and all that, but then that was a big part of it. And I had that gymnastics background, again, trying to be successful at something. Like I knew right away with endurance, like I had no talent. I was never going to achieve anything, but I had some quality muscle from gymnastics that I could build on. But then the bodybuilding world's just weird, it's just steroids and just the whole judging its beauty. It's not athletic, and I was an athlete. And that was, I wanted to, and then powerlifting. So when I got out of bodybuilding, it was really no choice. Like, I didn't want to do steroids anymore. I'd done steroids for 3 years, and I realized like, I'm at the beginning. I'm going to have to do steroids for 5 years to get to a national level. Like, I'm not doing that. That's already, so I just literally dropped that. I liked the training, but I was still young enough that I wanted, like, okay, I can compete as a power lifter because I still wanted to be an athlete. I still was motivated to compete. And powerlifting, you know, it's like, James, you put 600 in the bar. I can put 600 in the bar. I can make it or not, but I can try. And bodybuilding, the judges just move you around the table like chess pieces. It's like, that was no fun. And then I could have stayed in powerlifting, but I got hurt. So every time I've moved into something else, it's been because of an injury, basically. So, but it, you know, whenever I always have the same approach. Whenever I get into something new, I do a deep dive.
We had Steve Maxwell on about a month ago.
Oh, great guy.
So he posed a lot of interesting questions, and it was quite a thought-provoking podcast. But he was talking about, you know, the risks associated with any kind of training that you choose. And really, we got into a pretty deep dive on kind of how you start evaluating decisions around your training. And he talked about how certain exercises, and he wasn't, you know, he was a little bit scathing about kettlebells, for example, because he felt that they were quite hard on the joints, and he was also felt that they're more a sport than they were something to build someone's body up and keep it healthy. So,
and
I mean,
I 100% disagree, but go on.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously sports themselves, you know, as you mentioned earlier, the idea is that you've got to be elite and you're trying to win. It's a meritocracy. The idea is that at the end there's a winner and then there's second place.
Right.
And you do what you need to do in order to achieve that thing. Was it Finn, who was on the podcast as well, world champion, recently became world champion in the pentathlon and kettlebell sport. But 2 weeks before, his cauliflower
I saw that was
forearms burst that gave him blood poisoning. So, so it comes with its risks. So, I mean, how do you see this kind of conflicting information out there? And we had quite a few clients come to us after that Steve Maxwell podcast saying, "Oh, well, we do kettlebells, we do this. You know, is this good for me?" I mean, how do we start evaluating that?
Hey, Petunia.
That wasn't Mark. That was a cat.
Exactly. You want something, Hun? Can you take care of Tuna for me?
Tuna.
Petunia. Her name's Petunia. Tuna.
Oh, Petunia. I thought she was called Tuna. It's just like name the cat.
No, I call her Tuna for short, but her proper name's Petunia. But she wants to be fed. Anyhow, you know, here's the thing. How ironic that, I mean, like, Steve and I have very similar backgrounds and histories. Like, we both gave a talk at the Strength Matters conference, whenever that was on. I gave mine on the Renaissance of Strength, and Steve went through a retrospective of his. Basically, we gave the same talk, completely unrehearsed, because we went through the phases of fitness, you know, the jogging phase and the bodybuilding phase, and we've seen all these different phases, and he was in and out. The irony is that when I got hurt in powerlifting, the kettlebell is what rehabbed my back. The kettlebell is what allowed me to rehab my shoulder, you know, and the kettlebell, because my knee only bent 90 degrees on a good day, allowed me to swing without having to bend my knees. So my experience of it, and all my clients experience, when I first got the kettlebell, and when I found the kettlebell in 98 and got a kettlebell in 2001, it was for my clients, not for me. Because I thought, oh, what I needed, I wasn't going to put a barbell on my 60-year-old client's back and teach them to squat when they couldn't control anything. Give me a weight with a center handle. So when I saw that, I was like, good. Then I played with it. I'm like, oh my God, this is the swing, right? It's like swinging high bar. To me, it was immediately, very gymnasticy. But my experience of it was, not only did it not hurt me, it completely rehabbed my back. To a point where, like, right now, like, I don't know how old Steve's, a couple years older than me. Like, I regularly swing the 60 and 68 kilo bells. I did the 48 kilo sinister test with the 48, 100 reps in 5 minutes. I regularly swing, you know, between the 40 and the 68 kilo bell every week.
With one arm as well. I saw that the other day.
Yeah, it's all one arms. Right.
By the way.
Yeah. Hold on a second, guys.
That's right.
All right, you're right there. Hold on. Yeah.
We're just dealing with a. We're just dealing with a cat.
Photo bombed by a cat.
Oh, it's time for food, man. I don't care what you're doing. Feed me. Spoiler. But the point was, it completely rehabbed me. Okay. Now, one of my favorite I think it's Dan John quotes is like, it's not the squat that hurts you, it's how you squat that hurts you.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. I mean, kettlebells, I don't know. That makes no sense to me. Steve has obviously, like I said, there's the only person I know, all false modesty aside, that has a better resume or an equal resume to me is Steve, because nobody's been in it longer. We're old as dirt, right? And we've been doing the same thing. Like, I haven't done anything else besides training coach for 50 years. So not many people around can do that. Now, to your point about the price of competition, 100% true, right? 100% true. If you, sport is not about health. Sport is about performance. And is sport conducive to health? No. In any, take a sport, I don't care what it is, from marathon running to Olympic lifting. There's no, everybody's, find me a gymnast that doesn't have major surgery. It's impossible. And that'll go for most athletes. The question that and again, the question I'd ask myself is more about, like, you want to be perfectly safe in life. Okay, wrap yourself up in bubble wrap, sit in your bed, don't do anything, don't take any risks, don't do anything. And then, the question is, you're going to die. We're all going to die. The question is, have you lived? Right? What have you done? Are you going to take any risks? And like I said earlier, it's like, I'm not afraid to fail. So I failed. Everything that's preceded what I did, I failed at, right? I don't care. I'll just move on. I'll let it go and I'll move on. Now, for the average person that just wants basic fitness, there's no need to take those risks, right? There's no need to max out on anything, right? If you want basic fitness, it's so simple. Can you walk? Can you do these? There's those 7 basic patterns: squat, lunge, push, pull, bend, twist, gait. Do you have basic competency in those basic patterns? Do you have a healthy body weight, body composition? One of the things I've always said is, nobody ages better than natural bodybuilders. I stand by that. You see bodybuilders that lead, not competitive bodybuilders, because that's one of the most unhealthy things you can do, but regular people who go to the gym and try to build muscle and eat a basic diet and do their cardio. I had that experience. I was out of the Gold's Gym for 20 years. I went back, the same people there at the same time, where, like, I looked at them, if outside of their faces looked a little older, they looked exactly the same, because they lived that lifestyle. A large part of what I think is important is finding the exercises that suit you and don't hurt you. Like, I do one-arm swings because 2-hand swings hurt my back. Okay, after my back injury. So I gravitated to one-arm swings. My training partners found the opposite. Like, they're better with 2-hand swings than 1-hand swings.
That's interesting, Mark. So just to ask a question about that, because I obviously see you do a lot of your heavy one-arm swings, and most people would think, and I would think instinctively, that a 2-hand swing is sort of safer for the back and would probably give you, less, not as much risk of rotation, and, you're in more control, you're more balanced, you're more stable. So why do you find, is that a very deep question to do with your back, or,
Well, here's, it's a very simple question, really. If you're symmetrical, like, so say, like Peter, you were talking about your client that had one strong leg and one couldn't stand on their leg, right? Most people, especially of any type of back issue, one side of their body is stronger than the other. So say they've got one really tight psoas and one really normal psoas. They've got some rotation. So if one side's this way and you're loading it bilaterally, both simultaneously, you're going to end up overloading your strong side much more. So the irony is that asymmetrical training builds symmetry. Okay, so if I do say again?
I'm agreeing. I'm just saying, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're a very symmetrical person, like Tracy is like so symmetrical, she can do two-hand swings forever, right? Because she's a very balanced orthopedically. From all my injuries and all my whatever, I have scoliosis, I'm really rotated. So if you have a very balanced structure, you can get away with, you know, like I can't do barbell squats or deadlifts. I can do them, but I end up getting tweaked because my body has always been so dominant. Like in gymnastics, I twist one way. My brain got wired. So I'm always like slightly rotating right to left. So for me, the one arm swing, which means one side's loading, the other side's stabilizing, I'm always building stability in there, right? So that worked. Like I tried every year, 10 years, literally every year I would try two-hand swings because I really wanted to do I could do them, but I wanted to train them because it was such a cool move, right? Every time I do them, I'd load up my back. So I finally stopped trying. And now I can do them, but I prefer one arms, right? Same reason after my knee replacement, I could have gone and done squats and deadlifts, but I don't want to take that risk. So part of the thing with clients is finding, I think we have a real prejudice about thinking everybody's got to be good at everything. You know, it's like for me, okay, this is the obvious thing. It's like people look at my barbell press, right? And they, oh my God, you're going to break your back. I actually had to turn off the comments on my YouTube channel because all I got is people saying, dude, you're going to break your back. I said, I've been doing this twice a week for 8 years. And I went from a 95-pound press to a 225-pound press. My back never felt better. So you tell me, and it goes back to, okay, because my structure thrives on back extension and hates flexion. Okay, if I round my back, that's when my back hurts. So if I do like double front squats, my abs load up, next day my back's sore. Okay, if I do anything that works my abs, my back's sore. So my personal needs are much different. And that's, I think, the job of the trainer is to ascertain, what do you need? What are your physical structure? One is how you're built. Like I have short torso and long arms and long legs and short shins. You know, it's very specific. Finding the exercises that don't hurt you. Like barbell press is the only barbell move I do. I don't squat, I don't deadlift, I don't do anything bilateral. Kettlebells I do. You know, they swing, I do that. Like I can't do get-ups. Between my back and my shoulder, my body doesn't like get-ups. I don't do them. For some people, they're magic. And I think trying to force everybody into the same box, right? And again, it's those primal patterns: squat, you know, push, pull, squat, lunge, bend, twist, gate. Within those patterns, there's how many exercises are there you can find, or how many implements are there? So if your heart burns to be a competitive athlete, nothing's going to stop you. Like people talk about those kids gymnasts, right? And I was always like, oh, they're forcing these kids. Like, if you've ever taught kid gymnastics, nobody's forcing an 11-year-old girl to train 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can't do it. You have to pull them out of the gym. So if you're one of these people that, like, you fall in love with something and that's your, you know, it's risky, man. Life's risky.
I was just going to ask Mark as well about your rucking. That I know you've mentioned it already, but I know you do that regularly. And I see, and I remember when you were sort of rehabbing from your knee replacement, you were rucking, and then you'd stop kind of momentarily at different points in the walk, and you'd kind of walk yourself down a pole or something and get into a deep squat and come back up and walk again.
Still do that.
You still do that. Yeah.
Still
so
do
in terms of walking and rucking, I mean, is that's obviously a big part of your weekly sort of regime, I suppose. And is that something you encourage many of your clients to do? If it's
absolutely. And in fact, I because like my training, I told my training partner, because we talk about that all the time. It's like Saturday's my heavy swing day. Sunday's a 2-hour ruck, and Monday's my press day. And that's 3 days in a row. And I'm always beat up by Monday. You know, he says, well, why don't you press on a different day? I said, why don't you press, you know, and switch the ruck up? I said, you know what, if I had to give up anything, rucking would be last, because there's nothing more fundamental than being able to walk well. I mean, coming from somebody that literally could not walk more than 2 blocks for 20 years without pain. I knew that once I could walk, and rucking is just weighted, walking is just overload, right? I put up that on my Facebook page, a really good article called Born to Ruck. And basically it's like this guy was saying, like, anthropologically, we're built to carry stuff. You know, people say you're born to run. There's very few, there's no animal in the animal kingdom can outwalk us. Everything, your chihuahua can outrun you, right? But nothing can outwalk us. So we're literally born to walk. So I started off with the ruck just to, you know, overload my leg training, because I knew I was going to squat, and then holding on and doing my deep squat. That was part of my rehab to maintain that deep. I squat every day. I do body weight squats. You know, the opposite of standing is not sitting. Opposite of standing is squatting. So like right now, I do all my clients on FaceTime and I stand. And when my legs get tired, I squat down and stretch my legs. There's a difference between squatting for the human chair and squatting to see how much you can lift. Big, not even in the same galaxy. So the rucking is to me, what do they say? Your legs are your first to go. You know, you got to have a leg to stand on. There's so many. I did a lecture called 5 years ago in Florida. I've got a video called A Leg to Stand On. And it was about my knee replacement journey. But you look at the metaphors that people use in life for having strong legs. Are you going to stand up? You going to stand up for that? Or are you going to sit down? You know, it's like, are you a stand-up guy? From somebody who's basically a cripple for so long, I really understand, like, if you can't walk, you're toast. So the legs are literally the first to go, and keeping your legs strong. It's like, you know, people go, oh, I'm not going to do cardio. Well, if you can't walk 3-4 miles an hour for an hour without gasping, it's not cardio. That's called life, right? I mean, what's life? You break down life, it's like this, right? I told Franz Snyderman the other days, because he moved his house, right? I say, life comes down to picking something heavy up, carrying it an indeterminate distance, putting it down or picking it up, picking something up, carrying it, putting away, picking it up, moving it. If you did nothing more than that's pretty much all of life. Manual labor, whatever you're doing, you got to move your gym, you got to move your house, you got to move this. You're always picking something up, carrying it, and putting it somewhere. And if you can't, you don't really notice how important that is till you can't do it. So I think
you can also make money out of it by charging weak people to do it for them.
yeah, there's no amount of money. You're like, I don't care. You're my best friend in the world, your family. Don't ask me to help you move your house. I'll pay you, but I'm not moving. That's too much work.
Yes, as a personal trainer, you get very skilled at using the lightest weights in the gym to demonstrate things.
Right. No, I did that just the other day. I had a guy came in and he wanted to snatch. I gabbed like 10 kilo.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, it's the movement. I'm not worried about, you know, impressing anybody on it. But yeah, the rucking is just, it's intrinsically satisfying to me to be able to walk well and to walk, you know, I can, you know, when I got into this, the whole thing was like the Army Ranger standard. They have this 12-mile ruck for their graduation. Like every military in the world uses the ruck as their graduation, because like they usually make you walk to battle, right? You walk to battle carrying your own stuff, then you got to fight, then you got to walk home if you're lucky, right? So the Army Ranger was this 12-mile ruck with 50 pounds in 3 hours. It's like, well, there's no way I'm doing that in 3 hours, because most of the time they're jogging too, which is stupid for me. So I just wanted to get close to that. So I figured if I could do half that distance at about that time, I'd be happy. And that's how it came about, the 50 pounds. And I just want to be able to maintain that standard of fitness, because it ain't easy, but it's simple, right? It's like the swing, right? It's It's not easy, but it's a low skill. The swing's low skill, right? But high concept. So it's the same with rucking, you know, start with 10 pounds, then go up.
So what are your goals at the moment that you said you've kind of maybe got there's a big goal and then there's a smaller goal and there's weekly goals and things. What are you working on at the moment, Mark?
Well, my obsession of late is my press, my standing press. I won't call it a military press because it's not strict enough to be a military press. So I call it a standing press. And I've done 225, I think, 4 times, and I've done 2 plates, which is my real goal, was to be able to do 2 plates. I've done that twice, and I've done 225 with change on it, you know, I think another 2 or 3 times. But my goal is to be able to do that every week. And pretty much Monday's my heavy press day. I go in there and I go up as heavy as I can. I do singles, and I'll work up to pretty much, I can almost always do 215. On a good day, I'll do 220, and every once in a while I can hit 225. And then Wednesdays, I do basically body weight for, you know, 10 or 12 sets of 2, and working on speed and that type of thing. My swing training, so that's my goal. I believe it's more of a technical thing. I should be able to, I'm strong enough to press. And I'll tell you this, I'm very proud of this, because I know I've searched, there's not another 60-year-old guy that can press 200 pounds overhead, much less at my body weight. And
I was going to say, what's your body weight? Because you're not a heavy guy, are you?
No, I'm 176 pounds. So it's like, what is that? 78 kilos or something like that. You know, I vary between 176 and 176 and 177 and a half, something like that. But I know for a fact, I've searched, I haven't seen anybody that's my age that can press 200 pounds, much less 225. And I haven't seen anybody that's my body weight that can do that. So I'm very proud of that. So that's my big goal. And then the swing training, I'm on maintenance, my swing training. Like I said, I did the 5-minute sinister test with every bell from the 32 up to the 48. And I never, ever, ever want to do that again. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I mean, the last 3 sets, I literally thought I was going to die.
Wow. And that's a big statement, because you've obviously done like ultra running, and you've done, you know, elite level gymnastics and powerlifting and things. So to say that's, you know, that's a big statement, isn't it? To say that was.
It was like when I did the test, when I did the 5 minutes and I don't claim to have done sinister, because the swing wasn't high enough. So I'm not claiming I met that standard, but I did 10 reps every 15 seconds, 10 times. And they were, you know, they were swings. No one's not going to say they weren't a swing with the 48. But after I did it with the 44, I was like, okay, I can't even conceive of being able to do that with the 48. I couldn't even think of it because the 44 was so hard. So it took me another year and a half to get there.
Yeah.
So right now with my swings, I'm basically on maintenance schedule. So I just want to maintain, I'm, you know, being able to swing those big bells and be able to do the other. Each week is a different, I cycle my weights. Every week's a different bell. But my big goal is being able, I want to get to the point where I can press 2 plates, 245s on each side every week easily.
Wow.
I don't have any aspirations above that.
But that's kind of that's 1.2, 1.25 times body weight, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I can do that regularly and consistently, I don't have any aspirations for 245 or 250. No, I like the way that looks, like 2 plates. It looks good.
Excellent.
And to be honest, it's a corrective for my back. My back always feels better after a heavy press day or a press day, that big arch, you know, and that's another thing. Science says, you know, don't put your back into extension. It's like, well, how come I feel so good? Ignore your body. Science says this, ignore your feedback from your body. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
And with the rucking, it's just to continue doing that, like every Sunday, to go out and do your long ruck and just to maintain that. Because that's one of the things Jim was saying, obviously, is, you know, the dangerous thing is, and you mentioned it today as well, is stopping. You know, you stop and
Oh, yeah, no,
you know, yeah,
yeah. And just again, you know, finding the level like where this is like, I don't need to go 60 pounds. I don't need to go 80 pounds. I don't need to go 4 miles an hour. I just need to be able to maintain, you know, when you're old, going backwards slowly is going forward.
Hmm.
Right. So I'm going to lose ability. You know, if I can do this when I'm 70, I'll be super pleased. Right.
Yeah.
But even trying to will make me better. Right. So I don't, you know, as I need to back off, I will back off, because I'll tell you, the one thing that I will not do is I'm not going back into the pain zone. I don't want to live in pain. So anything, if tomorrow the press starts to hurt me, I'll drop it like a rock. I'm not attached to any, if I can't swing heavy, I'll swing light, whatever. I'm not attached to any tool or implement or loading. I'm attached to being pain-free movement. Because it's too sweet.
Yeah. I think that's a brilliant place to kind of to start to wrap up this one, Riff. That was an absolutely brilliant hour spent with you. And like we said to begin with, I know you've got a whole life and a whole wealth of experience and knowledge. So I'm sure we'll have to arrange to have you back on again and delve more deeply into some of these things. Pete, have you got anything you'd like to say or any questions at all to finish with, or?
Do you know what? I was thinking about something Riff said a while ago, and it's the whole thing about keeping on training and having the passion to keep training, and how people, instead of training for performance, just train for health. And Riff had the ultimate performance goal, and it was shattered. Your dream was shattered. Right at the beginning as well, right at the beginning of your career, and your dream was shattered. And it didn't stop you, but you kind of sort of tried to put like you said, you ran away from it, but it didn't stop you at all. And then you've actually gone on this journey, which has taught you all these other things. So I think that is absolutely brilliant. Like, you know, people want a 28-day program and all of this sort of stuff, and I want to do this and get there. It's like, no, that's the beginning. And it doesn't matter what happens along the way. There's always something you can do.
Well, I've always had role models and inspirations. Like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to create. I want to create myself. Right. Who do I want to be? You know, whatever it is. I mean, that's whatever motivates me, or, you know, inspiration leads to motivation for me. People talk about motivation, right? Motivation. What do they say? Motivation's for amateurs, discipline is for professionals, right? Yeah. But to me, inspiration leads to motivation. I need to keep myself inspired. How do I get inspired? I look at somebody that's doing something. It's like, oh, I want to be like that guy. And I keep using that. Like, when people are like, you were saying that people are, Paul, you're talking about clients that are at the beginning, whatever. It's like, find something that you want to be, someone you want to be. Because at some point you look, it's like, I don't want to be this. This isn't me. I can't relate to this body anymore, this sloth or this pain or this. Find the person you want to be and keep tapping into them for your inspiration to get out of bed and get moving. And it's like, I've changed personas. You know, I was a 125-pound ultra marathoner, and then I've been a 200-pound power lifter and everything in between. So it's like, you can change whatever floats your boat at the moment.
That's fantastic. Paul, do you have any questions or any thoughts?
No, I mean, well, yeah, I do, but it's such a fascinating conversation. Absolutely fascinating, been absolutely brilliant, and it's good to meet you again after 6 years, where you were really, really helpful for me, because I really struggled throughout the.
I remember.
I was a bit tired. My son was 4 days old, so I made the rather.
My wife would have killed me, yeah.
But I was also not as strong as I could have been, and you guys, I mean, all of you actually were really helpful in giving me the confidence, because I felt, you know, we talked about it with Perry Nicholson about this narrative and creating this new kind of way of thinking, and you guys all kind of created a path, and it was very easy to walk that path. You know, and it was very empowering. And actually, I failed that SMK. I failed the press. Everybody, but it was a great learning curve for me. Yeah, and you know, for me, I spent my early kind of physical education doing a lot of endurance stuff. I never put anything overhead. I never needed to. You know, we didn't carry a dead carcass over my head that I just hunted or anything. You know, so it was. So it was great. It was great to be kind of draw upon your expertise and your patience as well. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast, and it's good to hear about the rucking, because I mean, I think we call it tabbing in the UK military.
Right, yeah.
Tabbing. But it reminds me of like in 1066, they walked 180 miles in 4 days doing one battle, and then they came down south.
There's so many stories like that, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the SAS, I mean, I still want to do, you know, the whole thing with Penny Fan and, you know, and go up there, and like, that's crazy stuff. But it's so simple.
I've done that, and it's hard.
Yeah, I'm not good on hills too, and that's the other thing. I don't do hills because I'm trying not to get another knee replacement.
But that's
come to London. There's no hills.
Penny Fan's about an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half up the road from me. We'll be going there in a couple of weeks with the dog, actually. Just walk around there. Great.
No, those guys and those types of things are what, like I said, they keep me inspired, and my inspiration leads to motivation and discipline. Keeps me on track.
Excellent.
You know, it's like, if anything, it's like people are so willing to give themselves an out. You know, when Tracy did her, she, you know, like the luxury of no choice. Like, there's no choice. Once you take away the choice, it's easy. It's time to do it. Okay, I don't want to do it, but do it. You just don't have to like it. You don't have to think about it. Just gotta do it. It's people say, well, it's easy to say. It's like, well, it's always how it's done.
It's kind of easier to do in the long run as well.
Right. And it becomes that habit.
Yeah. God, it's been a fantastic hour. Thank you so much, Riff, for joining us. And I'm really sure that the listeners will have loved that, and we'll love to have you back again. So just quickly, guys, just to say thank you so much for listening. Please do please do subscribe. If you're listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please leave a review, and please do share with people who you think this information would be useful for or interesting for. We really are getting absolute world-class guests on this podcast now, and you know, and Riff absolutely epitomizes that. So once again, thank you so much, Mark. It's been great catching up with you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. And anytime you want, just let me know. I'm there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We will see you all again soon, guys, for episode 42. We'll see you next week. Take care.
All right.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.